All right. Well, here we are, a health and wealth interview with a fellow brother named Sir Williams. So I'm just gonna let him introduce himself and tell you a little bit about himself, and then we're gonna get into what his journey was down the path of health and wealth. Because if you have your health, you have true wealth. So this is Sir Williams. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, he's already done gave it away. I'm Sir Williams. Uh, just your local neighborhood heretic. Unitarian got a YouTube channel that'll run. That's how I met this guy. The Broken Theology, as he's known as. Uh, Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I live. That's me.
All right.
Falling over here. Hang on a second.
No problem.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so we had spoken a little bit. I guess we'll start out with your dad. Was that your first kind of introduction into the kind of natural aspect of living?
Yeah, basically, that was around. I was probably 14 or 15, and up until that point, and my dad contracted prostate cancer. I really didn't pay much mind to health. I just thought, it is what it is. You eat whatever you eat as long as it fills your stomach. It's good for you. But my dad comes down with prostate cancer, and I'll never forget. He went in and they told him they was going to do surgery on him to try to remove what they could. So he goes into surgery, he comes out, and he told me that the doctors told him they couldn't get to it all. It kind of had spread to other places. And so they wanted to start radiation therapy. And so my dad, being who he is, if you know anything about him, this would make perfect sense to you. But he basically refused the radiation. He basically told him, take him home. He said, hey, I want to go home. And they definitively said, hey, if you do that, it's not going to go away. It's going to come back. It's probably might even come back more vicious. But he continued to refuse, as my dad would, and he went home. So he goes home and he starts eating all this. He tried to get as organic as he could, but basically he was just taking as many fruits and vegetables as he could. He stayed away from meats as much as possible. Garlic, that's another thing. He would chop up organic garlic and put it into all his food, and it really didn't matter what food it was. I mean, I saw him put it in grits. I don't know how he ate it. It was horrible. He made a mistake one morning before I was going to school, and he would put the garlic, chopped up on his plate, and he pours grits on top of it. And then he called me to the breakfast table, and he accidentally gave me the wrong plate. And I bit into it, and I practically spit it on the wall. And I was like, "What is this?" And so he takes the spoon and starts rubbing it, in my grits, and he's like, "Oh, my mistake. I gave you the wrong plate." And I looked in, and it was grits in it. I didn't know he was doing that until he made that mistake. But anyway, moving forward, so he continues on his regimen. He take all the vitamins he could. About 7 months later, man, he comes up cancer free. And the doctors are wondering how he did it. And they asked him, what happened? What did you do? And my dad would say, well, my God takes care of me. He would always tell him that. And he never did tell him what he did. He never explained to the doctors what he did. And he told me he wouldn't because he felt like a lot of doctors wouldn't want to, have him as a patient if he was being kind of rogue, and doing things on his own. So he would just say, hey, it was a miracle, and he'd kind of leave it at that.
Right.
But, I watched the whole thing play out, and I was kind of worried about it because I didn't think, it would work. I had no faith in your kitchen being your method of healing, if you know what I mean. But it worked out, and it stayed in remission. He was around about 65 years old when that happened.
Right.
He lived until he was 75. He ended up passing away, from an accident. I think I told you about that on the other day. But remained in remission and never came back. Never came back. And so, he another thing is he had high blood pressure before that. He was taking high blood pressure medicine. Some doctors had diagnosed him with diabetics while others hadn't. They couldn't seem to agree on that from one doctor to another that, were doing the testing. But
Right.
by the end of that, he ended up not having diabetes, according to any doctor. He was in perfect health. And, other than rheumatoid arthritis, that's the only thing he couldn't shake off.
Right. So that was your first kind of exposure to someone seeking what we call unconventional treatments through, you had no exposure to that kind of knowledge before, people taking that kind of approach.
Yeah, it was not even a matter of first exposure. I didn't even have any knowledge that it even exists to begin with. You grow up and you're always told, do what the doctor says. If he prescribes a pill, take it. That's as far as I knew. And so my dad went on this little spiel of organic and natural ways to do things. It was the first I ever heard of, and honestly, I thought he was crazy. I honestly felt like it wasn't going to work, and I felt like he was making a mistake, to be honest with you. But it wouldn't be the first time the old man proved me wrong on something. So so it was a good thing. It worked out well.
Okay, so he basically fights off his cancer and passes due to other causes. It was not the cancer that got to him in the end. And even then, was that what kind of triggered you to well, first I guess we would say, when you took your journey down, your particular version of trying to eat better for yourself and everything, where did you start, and body wise and stuff, and where are you at now?
Well, I guess I can say what I learned from my dad's experience was that it kind of put it in the back of my mind that it's possible. I'm not gonna say that after seeing that I was just completely changed, and I continue to eat pizza and burgers like everybody else, but it was there. It kind of planted the seed, I guess. And last year I started having a lot of headaches. I used to get headaches every now and then, but I started noticing I was getting them more and more. And also allergies. I never had issues with allergies. I never even experienced it or knew what it was like. And when I first moved to Huntsville, I went there for a baseball scholarship. And when I first moved there, that first spring, I thought my head was going to explode. I mean, I sneezing all over the place. My sinuses were just all messed up, eyes watering. I couldn't function. And I was like, so this is what allergies are all about. This is my first experience with that. I was in my early 20s then, and so before I even knew what it was about, so I couldn't understand why I was having all these issues. And I started kind of doing some research on it. I guess you could say one thing leads to another, but when I was living at home, I ate a certain way. But when I went to college, as a typical college student would do, you start eating cheaper methods because you're out on your own trying to get by. And so my diet changed drastically. And I suffered through that through college, and then I ended up coming here to Atlanta later. I got a job as a flight controller. And so what ends up happening is I started doing some reading on it, and I was trying to prepare for the next allergy season and try to get ahead of it. And so I decided that February, before allergy season kicked in, that I would go as organic as possible. And by organic, I just mean, something that's not as many pesticides and things like that. But when I went to college, but even if I wouldn't have gone organic, it was still good because I wasn't eating hardly any fruits and vegetables at all. I'll just be honest with you. My diet was very poor. Mm-hmm. And so basically, I did that, and I also wanted to lose weight while I was at it. And so moving forward in this, I had no allergy attacks that spring whatsoever. It was the first time in about 5 years that I didn't have any allergy attacks, and it was amazing. And so also I was running a lot more. My energy level was through the roof. I didn't know what to do with it. I would go run just for the sake of running. And I had never been like that. When I played baseball, I thought I was in the best shape of my life. And I've come to find out now I wasn't in shape at all compared to, the shape I was in then. And all I did, like I say, I would just do organic smoothies. I had a recipe of, I'd use, I bought a Vitamix blender. I don't know if you ever heard of that or not. Uh-huh. Yeah, but I bought one of those, and that thing will eat up anything.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, and I put spinach. I would do 1 cup of grapes, 1 cup of 1 cup of green, 1 cup of red grapes. I throw some broccoli in there. You know, I might throw a couple of carrots in, and you know, I mix it up, and it tastes very good. And I do about 2 or 3 of those a day. I would eat fish and rice and things like that for breakfast. I know that's not a breakfast food for a lot of people, but that's what I did because I didn't want it sitting on my stomach at night, you know. So I would eat my big meals early in the day, and then I would taper off in the evening. And basically, I just exercised, and I mean, I shedded 40 pounds in a month and a half. And a lot of people, a lot of doctors would probably tell you that that's unhealthy. And you know, I'm not going to argue with them. They're the doctors, but all I can tell you is my story. And for me, I never went hungry. I never felt like I was starving myself. When I was hungry, I ate. You know, I just ate right. And it was expensive initially. You know, the first 2 weeks, I mean, man, I almost abandoned ship. I was like, I can't afford this, you know, because it costs so much to buy those type of foods. But after about 2 or 3 weeks, my appetite started to taper off. It's like my body was asking me for less food because it was getting good food. And it became affordable again. And so I stayed with it. And so, I mean, that's basically the story of that. I mean, like I say, I shed 40 pounds in the best shape. I could run for hours and not feel tired. It was very awesome, very awesome.
Okay, so honing back in on it, you lost 40 pounds in what period of time?
A month and a half. I think it was 93 days or something like that to be exact. I was 240, and I hit 199 93 days later. Since then, I put about 6 pounds back on. So I'm hovering between 205, 210 now. But I dipped right below 200. I was sub 200 for about a week there. And it was crazy seeing that number because I hadn't seen it in so long. So
right. So 93 days. Wow.
Yes, sir.
And did you what pant size did you go down to?
Let's see. If I remember, I went from 42 to 35. I believe that was.
Good grief.
I started out at 42. Yeah, and I kind of wear my pants kind of big. I wear a belt. Because I like my pants to fit loose. So you have to kind of gauge that how you will. But it like I say, man, I was dropping the pant size, and there was pants that I had in my closet like from years ago. Right. Just forgotten about collecting dust. And I was able to put those on and wear them again.
Right. No, I'm definitely familiar with that. So we lost anywhere from 6 to 7 pant sizes, 40 pounds.
Right.
And like you, I'm kind of shady on what I'm not sure. You will lose more weight. I guess that's one thing to point out to people. The more overweight you are, the faster you're going to lose weight in the beginning because your body has to use all that energy. So let's talk a little bit more about the physical side, and then we'll come back a little bit, I think, to kind of the food thing and whatnot. But within that, so you've been at it about a year now. Is that a safe assumption?
Well, after about 2 months, I kind of went to a blended hybrid version of every now and then I'll splurge and have something that maybe I shouldn't really eat, but predominantly I stay with the diet that I've been on. Because when I was trying to lose the weight, I was 100% organic, on it. But now I'm more in the maintaining the weight mode. So I don't eat perfect now, but I would say if you divide it all up, 75% of what I eat is what I'm supposed to eat, and the other 25 is probably garbage. So I'm kind of mixing it right now. But I will say this, my headaches left. I have not had a headache since. My blood pressure, it went down. It wasn't sky high, but, it wasn't great either. But it's come down to normal levels as well. I remember my wife was very worried about that, when I went and do my checkups. Doctors tell me my blood pressure is climbing all the time. But as far as the physical side is concerned, one thing I want to say is, when you eat right, you find yourself with energy that you didn't know was possible. And that was the biggest change for me is the way I felt, the way I felt in my mind. I was just, I'm in a feel-good mood all the time. Before I'd be kind of grouchy or, You know, I didn't want to be bothered or leave me alone, that kind of thing, you know. But now it's like, you know, my mood's a lot better. You know, my wife even says she notices the difference, you know, between now and then. So she's definitely benefiting from it, I guess, too, as well. But you know, you'll have the energy to do what you want to do, and you won't feel so taxed. You know, at the end of the day, you know, if you think about it, we as humans, we're supposed to be doing a lot more than what we're doing, but yet we still complain. You know, that we don't have the energy that we should, and it's because the food you eat bogs you down. You know, the body's using up half the energy just trying to digest all the garbage that we're eating. You know, and so, and that was a big thing for me is, you know, the fruits and vegetables and eating lighter. It was lighter on my body. And it was like you said before, you know, I did drop. I mean, the first 25 pounds like that, I mean, it was like I blinked and it was gone. But the back half of it, it's slowed, you know. And it's like you say, the more you lose, the harder it gets to lose it. You know, those last 10 can be so stubborn, you know. And so I definitely experienced that as well.
Now, had you ever found out what your BMI was or anything like that? Have you ever looked
No,
at your body?
I actually I didn't work with BMI too much, to be honest with you. What I did do was fat percentage or body fat percentage. Yeah, I got one of those little calipers, you know.
Right.
You know, you're doing the whole pinch test thing, and I got down to 21%, you know, when I was at my best. I'm sitting around about 22, 23 right now, so I'm in the what they call the normal range. But you know, for my height and everything. But it was if you get sub 20%, you know, that's when they say you're doing pretty good. And a lot of doctors try to tell you not to go below that. And so I did try to pay attention to that, but I never did get into the BMI, you know, per se. I kind of faded more towards the, you know, I bought those calibers or whatever, and I paid more attention to body fat percentage.
Right, and that's what the actually will be. So you're basically doing the same thing.
Oh, okay.
And BMI is just mass index. How much of it is fat and how much of it is something else. And the 15 to 20% range seems to be optimal from what I've learned. And so you didn't really take out a workout regimen in particular. You just kind of started running and doing some things. So you didn't necessarily. It basically, you didn't have to, you know, like someone like myself, I work out 5 days a week. But what you're saying is, in your case, that really wasn't necessary. It was a diet.
I can't. No, I'm not saying that. I worked out pretty hard. You know, if I made it, you know, misunderstood, forgive me. What I did was, I don't know if you ever heard of HIIT training or high intensity interval training.
Yeah.
I started out with just jogging, and you know, I run 10 minutes, man. And I was out of gas. You know, it was over. You know, TKO. But as I progressed, you know, I started getting run more and more. I do a lap around the neighborhood. You know, game over. But then, you know, after about a couple of weeks, I was like, you know, I think I can get another lap in. And my point is, I would let my body tell me when it's ready to step it up to the next level. So I started out with jogging, and once I got to where I felt pretty good about that, I tied in. You know, you can do HIIT training. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. One way I did it was on the elliptical. I would do that 3 times a week. And what I would do is I'd pound out on the elliptical as hard as I could, 100% effort for about 30 seconds. And then for about a minute to a minute and a half, depending on how I felt, I would go real slow. And I would bounce back and forth, you know, for about 20, 25 minutes. And so you don't stop. Your break comes kind of when you're going slow. That's when you're catching your breath. And so your heart rate is just going up, down, up, down, up, down. And so it kind of confuses the body. The body doesn't know what's going to come, you know, what's going to happen next. And with HIIT training, you get a post-workout burn as well. I had one of those heart rate monitors. And so, you know, I had it around me, you know, keeping up my heart rate. And what I noticed was after I was done with that workout, my body would burn another 400 or 500 calories just because my heart rate wouldn't come down. But when you do things like long distance running, I didn't notice it as much. You know, if I ran at a you know, moderate pace for say 45 minutes, my heart rate would come down a lot faster and sooner after I stopped. But when I was doing HIIT training, it would just stay up for another 20, 25 minutes. So it's like I was getting free calories, you know, free calorie burn. So I do that, and I also would do push-ups. I would do 5 sets of 10 with body weight. And as I got stronger, I started actually, I take a backpack and put weights in it, and I started doing the push-ups like that. So that's all I did. I would do the elliptical 3 times a week, and in between those days is where I would go jog. So I would jog in between those days, and I do the weight training or strength training every other day. So I did that. So that in combination with the diet, the weight came off pretty fast, and I can tell you, I never went hungry. That's the biggest thing. I ate, but I just ate right.
Okay, so you kind of were just, you weren't really on a set regimen. You just kind of came up with your own, and it was based around the process of eat less, move more.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, and that's what I'm trying to kind of get at is
Right.
to let people know that I do like the 5-day-a-week heavy training, and the stuff with the HIIT. Yeah, it is very good, because my understanding of it is that over the next 32 hours, you'll burn the same amount of calories you burnt during the workout. So there's definitely a lot of benefit to unstable cardio. It's like a guy in the gym told me. He said, you'll see a lot of fat joggers, but you never see a fat sprinter. And
Yeah, that's true.
and I think that is kind of what it comes down to. So how was your life at the grocery store different now? What were you on the lookout for once you got your results and you wanted to keep them, besides that backsliding cheeseburger you had yesterday?
Well, basically, I stuck to it pretty good when the first 2 months, man, I was rock solid. You couldn't shake me from that, fruit and veggie foundation. It couldn't be done. And it was actually a vacation trip that messed it up. But to answer your question, going to the grocery store, to be honest, I saw the grocery store as my enemy. I didn't see it the same anymore. I was like, that's a place where if you buy the wrong stuff, it can do some damage to your body. But the perimeter is what I ended up noticing is the aisles is where all the bad stuff is, more often than not, so you just bounce around the perimeter of the grocery store, and that's where all the things is that I bought. You go to produce, you hit up, the eggs. I did a few eggs, try to get some protein. The few organic meats that I ate was around the edge. I hardly ever went down the aisles of the grocery store.
So that's the key, is perimeter shopping.
The perimeter shopping, yeah. I know it sounds crazy, but my wife and I talked about it all the time. We were doing it, and still do it. It's the aisles is where all, your preservatives, your MSG, your corn syrup, you're gonna find all that stuff on the aisles. So if you can manage to stay away from the aisles, that right there is a success within itself.
No, I think that's probably a very good observation, because I'm thinking to the stores we have down here, the Winn-Dixies and the Walmarts and the like, and it's basically everything that can go bad is put in the coolers, which have to be around the perimeter of the building so they can throw it away easily, and the stuff that will last for 20 years that'll kill a cockroach they can put in the middle because they don't have to move it.
Right.
So yeah, I might actually book about that perimeter shopping with Sir Williams. I think that'd be
take you on a journey with me to the grocery store.
It makes a lot of sense. Well, you read the first chapter and the last chapter. Start on the left and go to the right. Okay, so shopping was actually simple once you figured out that stuff on the outside of the store. Basically, and I think that's what you're kind of getting into now, and which I think will emerge the more we look at it, is food that doesn't go bad.
Yeah.
It is. Life is, like I said before, life is always taken from life. Yeah. So when you eat something that's lifeless, it's so you learn to dodge that stuff. So what are your days like now? Are you still eating the fish and the vegetables for breakfast, or have you fallen to the Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
No, basically, it's kind of like on the weekends. It's like the weekends is where I'll do a little deviation, if you will. But during the week, I try to be as on point as I can. I'll try to pack stuff for work, and that, honestly, that's the kicker. Is the American lifestyle is so fast paced overall. So it's just easy to grab something, grab a burger or grab something that's, just you pop it open and eat it. But when you're trying to do this, you'll find that you have to pack your food. Like you've got to, so you got to get a lunchbox and you got to cook your food, maybe before you go to sleep, you cook your food and put it in the Tupperware, for work tomorrow. You're going to have to do extra work to keep it up, and so that's the biggest thing. But for me, it's mostly the times I deviate the most is when I'm really on the run. Like, I got a bunch of errands to run, or I'm taking some road trip, going to the beach or something like that. That's a lot of times when I'll deviate. And if you don't mind, I'll tell you a story. What broke my diet, when I was losing all the weight, I went down to Fort Myers, went down there to Sanibel Island, and we had a little place there. We was gonna stay there for a week. And my mother-in-law actually came down there with us, with my wife and I. And they're eating pizza and they're doing their thing. Here I am, I'm bagging my grapes around, and having to go across the bridge to go to Publix all the time and go to the grocery store. And it seemed like I was a burden on them, because they were having to deal with me not eating with them all the time, and I started feeling bad about it. And so I said, well, these last couple of days, I eat like them, and then when I go back to Georgia, everything be back like it was. And I never forget, they went to Pizza Hut. And so we get this pizza, and I'm like, all right, easy. And I didn't think much about it. I ate this pizza, and it was so heavy. Like, I didn't realize how heavy it was. I'd forgotten about it because I hadn't eaten like that in a while. And it sat on my stomach like a brick,
Mm-hmm.
And about 45 minutes later, man, let's just say my body was not happy with me at all. All right? It was like, what are you doing? We were past this bridge. Why are you shoving pizza down your throat? But
Mm-hmm.
it was just basically what I'm getting at is it was a reaction. My body was basically, I guess I had been clean for so long that now it's like my body couldn't tolerate it anymore. And by the time I was done with that trip, I had kind of morphed into this hybrid. I can take the organic or I can take the pizza, but I can do either one. And so now my deviation, basically, like I say, now it comes on the weekends when I'm out at the park with my son, or we're on the move or something. I'll splurge and I'll pick up something, but during the week I'm pretty rock solid though.
Okay, so you just try to focus on having a good week, and whatever happens during the weekend kind of happens, huh?
Right. And it's kind of like if you're gonna eat organic 24/7. Then you have to understand, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to grab something real quick that's not on your normal diet, your body is not going to be happy with you at all. And that was the lesson I actually learned from that as well. And it was interesting because it kind of let me gauge just how much food matters to the body. And it's almost like your body will adapt, to whatever you give it, good or bad almost. But if it's good, your body's going to clean itself out of all the garbage. And if you introduce garbage at some point after that, you can expect your body to be pretty upset about it. So I guess that's why, if I bounce back and forth, it's not too bad. My body's kind of accustomed to that now.
Okay, and you brought up the term detox. Is that something you've ever actively tried to do, taking like one of these lemonade or water detox programs just to clean yourself out, or you just kind of...
Well, no, I never went to those things. My smoothies that was my detox when I first did it. The green smoothies, as they call them, the Hulk drinks, as I call them. I mean, they're bright green, man. They're almost glowing at you. But if you had a bad diet and then you just immediately switch and you go to these diets, where it's like all smoothies all the time or something like that, oh yeah, you're gonna detox. You're gonna have stuff just coming out of you in all directions, and it will. But you'll feel a lot better afterwards. I'll tell you that. Like you'll once you turn that curve. I mean, and it's rough. I don't know if you've ever done it, but it's rough. Like if you start detoxing, it is a rough thing to go through. It's a bad 5 days. But if you can make it through to the other side, you'll be a lot better off for it.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, it's like I said, I probably eat more proteins and stuff now than most people because I'm kind of on a strength kick. But yeah, when the primary diet change, I went through the whole counting the calories and
Yeah,
the whole 9 yards, and yeah, I felt like I was starving to death. But it's one of the biggest differences is I think, and I guess a lot of people who see this later might laugh at this, but I think the honest truth is you're gonna notice it when you use the bathroom.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
a humongous difference.
yeah. And you also you'll be more regular. Your digestive tract will be working properly, to say the least.
Right.
But going back to counting calories, I had this little app. It was, you might have heard of it, Fitness Pal or something like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I use that to count my calories. And when you start getting into that, if you're doing it right and you're literally paying attention to every single thing you eat and the calorie intake and the servings that you're taking in, you actually start to learn a lot about foods. It kind of happens as a byproduct of that, because you start finding out just how many calories these things have. You start, every time somebody, hey, you want this apple pie? You flip it over, 500 calories, I'll pass. I don't want to blow my calories on an apple pie. You start, thinking like that. You start being economical because you don't have so many. And you start
Mm-hmm.
eating, spinach, and you start eating grapes and apples and bananas, and you start finding out the calorie content in fruits and vegetables are so low. Some of them are even considered to be negative, because your body has to burn more calories to digest it than what actually the calories that's contained in the food itself. So if you really want to have a full diet, have some fiber, have some spinach, have some, or eat your food, your fruits and your vegetables, because you can definitely get a lot of food in without having to blow your calorie content. And sugar is your arch rival. It ain't gonna work. If you're taking a lot of sugar in, it's just not gonna work.
No, I would definitely agree. It was one thing that I noticed because on a maintenance diet, right now I weigh in at about 230, about 6'1" and some change, and my maintenance diet is 2,800 calories. And when I got onto this kick, like I said, it's been about a year for me,
Mm.
since last November, pretty much. There are days that before I counted calories, I'd have to honestly admit I probably ate 45, 5,000 calories and wasn't working out at all.
Right.
And I think people are just they'll be shocked at how much they actually eat compared to what their body may need.
Right.
And you're right. There's meals that I'm kind of out of the counting phase now because I'm trying to gain a little bit more muscle mass, and then I'll go back to what they call cutting or dieting again. But yeah, I can't tell you the amount of food that I just passed up on because it's like eating at Burger King and McDonald's was just out. It was just like there's no way I'm gonna eat. Like I remember there was a black guy at my work, and I was gonna run to the store, and I had set aside calories for the weekend. See, I'd run a deficit during the week, and I said, I'm gonna get me my little ham, egg, and cheese biscuit, and I got the calories for it. And this guy says, well, while you're out there, give me a big breakfast while you're out there. McDonald's big breakfast with the sausage. So I just looked it up on my phone. 1,800 calories. I'm like, dude, that's breakfast, lunch, and half a dinner for me. It's like what you don't know can kill you. You don't have a clue how much we're overloading ourselves, and then you look at what you take in. And I think anyone that goes down this path starts to realize this. It just kind of dawns on them because life revolves around macro and micronutrients, and the big ones are water, protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Well, your body needs, everybody knows, you need vitamin C, you need some vitamin A, you need vitamin D, you need all these other little substances. And there comes a point where you start to realize that, well, it's just not about the calories now. Now it's about what am I getting out of those calories.
Mm.
And on a fast food diet, you're going to be overloaded with all kinds of stuff, but all the stuff you need, like, you look at potassium and magnesium, those are absolutely necessary to make your heart function. It's if you run out of potassium, your heart's going to stop. It's that simple. and you'll get more potassium, but getting all these little things that you need. And that's one of the great things about juicing to me, is that it's a great way to infuse whatever your diet is, because most of the time when people diet, they just end up not eating. It's not like you program yourself not to eat, and that's not a good thing either. You know, you don't want to get to the point where you're not eating. So the juicing is a great way to infuse all that fiber and those micronutrients. You know, you're gonna need some protein. You're gonna need, you need fat. You actually really need fat, and that's something I'm gonna touch on in future videos, because fat, it surrounds all of your cells. It's what makes them waterproof. You know, cholesterol, you actually need it, and there's great replacements for it besides a cheeseburger. You know, getting a tablespoon of coconut oil or something will do just as good for you as anything else. But yeah, you're hitting on a lot of stuff, and I just wanted to show people that I think there's a commonality. I think anyone that goes down this road, they always overlap with each other. There's always going to be a lot of threads of commonality to getting healthy. But I just think people might need to realize, why it has its ups and downs, I don't think it's as hard as people make it out to be mentally.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think my first 2 weeks, if you'd have said that to me in the first couple of weeks, I'd have disagreed with you. Like, yeah, you're wrong. This is completely hard mentally. But it's, you turn a curve. If you can stick with it and get through that initial, like I say, the detox and the change in lifestyle is going to come from it, and all those things. Once it becomes a part of you, you just can't go back, because you just feel too good. I really don't know how to say it any other way than that. I mean, sometimes I reflect on what I used to eat. My wife and I talk about it all the time. Back when I just got out of college, we would go to work, and just, go to McDonald's and eat breakfast. Who knows how many calories was in that? And then, we get to lunchtime, we make another run to Sonic or Taco Bell or somewhere, and then in the evening we get home and we, pop a DiGiorno's in the oven. And you look at, our weight, but, when we started that regimen, we look back at our weight and how it increased over time. It's just like you said, you're taking in so many more calories than what you need, but your body becomes accustomed to it. It becomes normal to you. And so once you switch, I see people, they get headaches every day. But then I watch their diet, and I almost want to just go up to them and tell them, you realize that most likely it's your diet, and so, because I know me, whenever I was getting all those headaches, when I stopped doing that, now I had major headaches during detox. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was bad. But once I got on the other side of that thing, the headaches disappeared. I haven't taken them Tylenol since, and so it's just, your body will tell you, but it'll adapt to whatever you do to it. But the thing is are you getting by, or are you healthy? And that was the difference maker for me. You might feel okay, but you're not. And you might think you're all right, but you're not. And so once you change your diet and just how good you feel, how light on your feet you feel, your mood, being a lot better, you're happier, 24/7, instead of going through those periods during the day where you just, feel like being bothered. You really shouldn't feel like that. If your chemicals are hitting on all cylinders, you're supposed to be in a good mood more often than not. And I think that's another thing people don't realize. It affects your life in so many different ways. So many different ways.
Okay, well, it looks like we're moving at a pretty good clip, at 37 minutes. I guess we'll kind of wrap it up, and maybe, like I said, as I come up with better questions in the future, we might revisit the topic. But what would be the one, if you sat down with somebody, and let's say it's a loved one, let's say we're all brothers and sisters on this planet, on this walk that we take together, what would be the one thing, if you had just 5 minutes to tell them, and these were overweight people, saw the signs of heart problems, the funny colors in the skin, the total lack of energy, and couple that with the total depression that these foods, these sugary foods breed, they actually make you depressed. What would you tell them, as far as, if that's the only chance you had to say anything to them, what would you tell them?
Basically, I'd say return back to God. Return back to His food. return back to the way he intended you to eat. And if you do that, you'll find that all of these issues are going to get fixed. I know that's a very definitive statement, but I would say, I experienced it myself. And when your body's not getting what it needs, it's not going to function right. And then when your body's got all the added weight, it's going to be bad on your bones, bad on your cholesterol. Everything in your body's working harder. Your depression is coming from the fact, a lot of these foods, I would tell them these foods are messing with your body chemically. So I would putting it simply, I would say return to the way God intended people to eat. You set a burger out from McDonald's out on the plate and come back 7 months later and it's not even rotted. If the flies won't mess with it, why are you? Why is that your main source of food? That's basically what I would tell them is if you want to improve your life and your mood and your health, your longevity, your spirituality, your thinking capabilities, then just return to the natural way. That's the simplest way I could put that if I had to say it briefly.
Right, and that's something maybe I wish I would have had phrased in the questions earlier, but that is one thing I noticed is that getting healthier to me seems to put you in touch with your spiritual side. It just seems like a byproduct to being healthier. Is that something you noticed? Was that something that, did you notice spiritually that you felt more awake maybe, or alive, or in tune might be a good word?
Absolutely. What's that feel-good hormone they talk about? It's on the tip of my brain. Serotonin, I guess it is one of them. When you're firing off, chemically correct, now your body's in tune with you. Your body's in tune with with your surroundings. You're able to think better. You're able to grasp concepts better. I definitely would say that, mental clarity, as they call it. But see, to me, that's spirituality. To me, that is your body being in tune with itself. Your physical is in tune with your spiritual. They're combining together, and the foods have a lot to do with it. When you're getting headaches, when you feel awful, when you feel run down, you feel heavy, you're walking and you feel like your feet weigh 10 pounds apiece. How are you going to get in touch, with anything else? You're too busy coping with not feeling the way you should. And people go along like this for so long and they don't realize that it's not normal and something's wrong. But it's just what they're used to, is what they think is normal. You hear people say all the time, I'm tired, I'm tired. I was in my mid-20s. I shouldn't be telling people I'm tired today just because I had to go to work for 8 hours. That should be the least of my trouble. But I felt tired all the time. So how can you get in touch with anything else when you can't even cope, with the day-to-day activities, of living, in a fast-paced country. And you think about it, you think about those people that live in countries that aren't necessarily industrialized. They don't have these problems. And they're a lot better spiritually, as a people overall. And I've noticed that as well. So I definitely think that it absolutely helps you, not only physically, but in your mental and your spiritual thinking, your spiritual clarity.
I definitely agree. And the heart disease and various forms of cancer are things that I don't think need to exist. And we single-handedly, I think, produce these diseases with the we eat. And, like I said, heart disease is one that it's a Western disease. What's striking about it, it's not something that the Vietnamese or the Chinese necessarily suffer with so much because of their diets, until we build a McDonald's over there and people get addicted to the food, and the same thing happens all over again. Well, we came in right at 42 minutes. That's I think we touched on everything a little bit, and like I said, it's stuff I'll be pursuing in the future, so I just don't want to overload people with a really long video. But I think we touched on everything, and as I come up with better questions, I'll be glad to have you back and maybe hone in on some things. But This is Broken Theology with Sir Williams. You can find him on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel. You'll find him in my friend circle and the like, so you can find him there. And check out his videos on Unitarian belief. And I guess this will be it, guys. Thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoy it later on.
Shalom.